Welcome to Genuine Life Recovery. We're here to help you and your loved ones overcome addictions and other addiction-related mental health challenges. In this show, we dive into the physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual aspects of addiction, mental health, recovery, family dynamics, codependency, and more. You can listen on your favorite app or at jodiestevens.org. Genuine Life Recovery is made possible by great friends like Joshua's Heart in memory of Joshua Brent Moore, bringing hope, love, and awareness to those afflicted by addiction, online at joshsheart.org, and Jodie Stevens Productions for commercial voiceover, narration, production, MC, and public speaking, online at jodiestevens.org. Hey friends, welcome back to Genuine Life Recovery. My name is Jodie Stevens. I'm here with my husband, Aaron. So we're kicking off the Serenity Series. So when we talk about serenity in addiction and recovery, a lot of times, when people are new and they're coming in, they don't even know what that means. We always hear the Serenity Prayer. And through the years of recovery, we start to figure out how we apply it to addiction recovery and to our life. But we're also going to be talking to people about how do you apply serenity when it comes to not being able to have children, which we could do a show on that. How do you apply serenity to grief? How do you apply serenity to abuse? How do you apply it to mental health? So it's not just addiction, but we're going to kick it off by starting with that, because I've been sober 19 years and you've got, honey, 22 years sober. Woohoo! So, we don't have all the answers, of course, but we just want to break down this prayer to start the series off and talk a little bit about what it means. And I want to ask you how you've personally used the Serenity Prayer, really more the concepts in the Serenity Prayer, and applied them to your life. Because the concept of serenity has really more to do with the underlying issues. In other words, it's less about drugs and alcohol and more about emotional sobriety, right? Maintaining our sobriety, because without serenity, we tend to be, irritable, discontent,
restless, irritable, and discontent.
Yeah. So, and that's how I was for many, many, many years.
Another word for serenity is peace.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you don't have serenity, you don't have peace. It's the same difference,
right.
So how many people do you meet who've been in, meetings for years and years and years, and
right.
They're still bouncing off the walls and twitching and stuff like that, and be like, all right, well, wonder what you missed when you first did your program, because it's not supposed to be like that after you've been at it for a while.
Right. Well, and so for the first 10 years that I was sober, the real issue was all the codependency issues that I've talked about over and over on this show. And I didn't really grasp the concept of serenity and what it meant and how to apply it to my daily life so that I could maintain sobriety. So I want to read it in its full, because most people haven't heard the entire prayer. And it goes, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking, as he did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever in the next. So it's a beautiful prayer, okay? A lot of people haven't heard the prayer in its entirety, but we're going to break this down for you. So God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So how would you define that first section of the prayer? What does it mean, and how has it really applied in your recovery?
It is what it is. People absolutely hate that term. There's a reason why people hate that term. It's because until you understand that it is what it is, then you can't really start to separate all the stuff going on and figure it out until you can actually just say, all right, you know what? If you were a Kamala Harris supporter, you have to say it is what it is. Donald Trump got elected president. And, if you're a Donald Trump supporter, you have to say it is what it is, because not everybody likes Donald Trump. And I'm going to use that as a very, relevant example of that. But it's just like, until you can get to the place where you just understand that things, it's a page 417 of the 4th edition of Big Book, that stories and acceptance is the key to all, everything today.
Yeah.
Until I can accept that everything that's going on right now is exactly the way God wants it to be, I couldn't get anywhere.
Right.
And so that's the serenity. The key thing of the Serenity Prayer is like, look, this is it. Life is what it is right now. I can't do anything about it. The only thing I can change is me. And that's where it goes into the next sentence of the Serenity Prayer, where you say, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Okay, it is what it is. The courage to change the things I can. Me and what I do with that stuff that is what it is. And the wisdom to know the difference. There are certain things out there I can't do it. In fact, most everything in my life I can't do a darn thing about. The only person I can do anything about is me. So what does that mean in our sobriety? Well, it's like, look, how many people go out there and they try to get clean, and something trips them up and they relapse.
Right. Exactly.
Okay? That's the defense against getting tripped up and relapsing, or and it doesn't mean you actually go out and drink and use again. It could just mean you shove your head up your start acting out again and things of that nature. But the Serenity Prayer is your defense against that, because until you can just let life happen, let things be, you're not going to do.
Right. Well, and then the other thing of it is, what can I change? What can't I change? So you got to be able to know the difference. So for me, I would always try to change things. I was never outwardly controlling, right? But I would obsess over things. So a great example is, I'm going to obsess for days because Bob was mean to me, right? I use this example a lot. Okay, well, maybe I can't change the fact that Bob's mean to me, and maybe I don't think Bob likes me, but I could ask Bob. But if I'm super afraid of Bob, I'm going to continue to be afraid of him and let his meanness trigger me into drinking. Or I can say, God, give me the courage to talk to Bob. See? And so when I was like super codependent and in radio, in my earlier years, I would be so upset about things that would happen, and I would go home and drink over it, because that was the only control I felt like I had. Because I didn't feel like I could go to these people and say, hey, I need more money, or hey, I need that or this. And so that's when it's like, okay, so what is it that I can't change? What can I change? And a lot of times we don't know the difference. Honestly.
How many people have you ever seen say, you know what, that person pissed me off, and then next thing you know, they go out and engage in all kinds of self-destructive behavior.
Right.
Well, that person that pissed you off is still that person that pissed you off, and nothing changed, except for you going out and friggin' stepping on a landmine or whatever stupid stuff you did. It's just not worth it. And so the Serenity Prayer is part of that behavioral modification that has to happen in order for you to get clean and stay clean and stuff like that. It doesn't work without it. And it doesn't work without, and this is, by the way, it breaks all these, when you're able to get to a place of acceptance and understanding that there's some stuff you got to turn over to God, which is darn near everything in your life. Actually, perhaps everything in your life, because God wants it all. This is how you get there. This is what it looks like for real, because without this, you can't get or stay clean. I suppose maybe you could white knuckle it and just be absolutely insane and out of your mind and what have you, which I suppose is possible. But 99 2/3% of us will never be able to stay off the sauce or off the dope or what have you, without being able to get to this place in our minds with life as it is.
Well, and serenity is like a shift. So like for you, serenity when you were still drinking and when you were younger and you were, doing lawn jobs on teachers' houses and things like that.
Right.
Serenity was like, having the case of the F-its, right? Just screw it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to drink, I'm going to act out. Like, that was what serenity is. So how is it different for you now? Like, now it's not, because serenity doesn't mean give up, give a middle finger to the world, act out. It's very different in sobriety.
Serenity just basically means, serenity it's like maturity. It's like growing up. It's just like saying, hey, people are people. And there are some people out there that are immature or stupid, and I cannot do anything about their paradigm. So what I do and how I handle it is either strike two. It's either strike two or I can just be free of it. And so you go through this living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's this old phrase saying, if it doesn't kill us, it makes us better.
Which is
And
often true.
how many times do you see people actually absolutely screw themselves out of today because they're always worried about tomorrow?
Have I ever done that?
Almost the entire time I've known you.
And that right in there lies the problem of once you take the addiction away, if you don't deal with that stuff, right, you're going to be constantly
You're going to be
upset.
miserable. You're going to be miserable. It's like you're better off just getting freaking wasted and being out of your mind. Because if you're still spun and still trying to control people, places, and things, you're nowhere. You haven't gotten anything other than just gotten the garbage out of your system, but you're still basically the same person that you were when you were using.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Right.
Serenity Prayer, this long version of it, that's basically the entire AA program summed up into 2 paragraphs.
Pretty much, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because if you grasp this, you grasp the program. Doing the steps, making the amends, working with other people, it becomes really super easy once you're able to pull yourself out of the middle of it.
Because life can be overwhelming. And really what we're taught. So this is totally counterintuitive, but this is what the Lord teaches. He says, basically, you may be helpless many times, but you are never powerless with me.
Right.
So he wants us to give up stuff to him that we cannot handle, that we can't fix.
Which is pretty much everything.
Right. And initially it starts with the addiction because we've tried everything. We can't do it, but we're taught growing up, right? We're not taught. Nobody teaches kids serenity. They teach us to be in control, to go out and get things and to do all this stuff. So it's very counterintuitive. So people
Right.
come in and they think, so you want me to rely on God and surrender? Then that makes me a big weakling, right? But
I remember saying in a meeting when I was first getting sober, I'm like, surrender? That's for the French.
right?
And everybody started laughing. But the point was, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm German. And to use a great example, anybody looks at history, even recent history in the last 100 years, what did the Germans do? They went and picked a fight with everybody. And the only time they quit fighting is when their country was completely overrun and burned down to the damn ground. And it's like,
Right.
okay, you got a choice.
Yeah.
So we also say in meetings a lot of times, like, give God a try for a year, give AA a try for a year, because if it doesn't work out for you, life will gladly refund the misery.
Yeah.
So here's your choice, right? What can I change? Can I accept what I can't change? What can I change? And can I just let things be that I can't change, right?
Right.
And you go from there and you understand that everything that happens is happening for a reason, and it's not about you. It's not personal or anything like that and what have you. You can separate it out. And I'll give you guys a great example right now, like for those of you watching, like my wife knows this well. I'm basically estranged from my family, and it wasn't my fault.
Right.
But it was, circumstances happen. They changed the rules. They did certain things. And I basically told them no, I wasn't going to go along with it and what have you. And at that point, for whatever reason, 50 years old, it all blew up. And, at this point in my life, here it is, 4 years later and what have you. I haven't talked to my mother in 3 years. And they all think I did something wrong. And it's like, I can't control that. And so I can dwell on the fact that, I haven't been on speaking terms with most of my family for, 3 years. Or I could just move on and do other things with my life and other things with my time, which is why, of course, we're sitting here recording this from our beach house in Oregon. Because it's like, I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. I might be dead tomorrow. So instead of like saving all the money that we're spending on this beach house for my retirement, we're actually enjoying some of the fruits of that labor today, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So I give you 2 concrete examples. One is my family. Let them be right where they're at, to the point where, I'm making life decisions and doing things today, and it's unfortunate that they're not part of it, but it's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, we bought this beach house in Oregon. And most people would say, oh my gosh, you got to save money for retirement. You got to do this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, well, guess what? We are still getting some equity in this place, so there will be some value to it in 20 years. But man, 20 years from now, I'll be 73. There's no guarantee that I will be as happy, healthy, and spry then as I am today.
Yeah.
So maybe all the time that we're spending on the beach now, we will cherish 10, 15, 20 years from now, because maybe we won't be able to do it. Maybe we still will. Maybe we'll still be healthy enough to, but maybe we won't.
Yeah.
So the two key things here, right, is I can't control my family, so I turn them over to God. And we bought this beach house because we had a variety of reasons to do it and so forth. And instead of worrying about tomorrow, we took care of today, because you're closer to your family, and we have a place in the middle of an area that we love being, right?
Yeah. Well, and I love that analogy, because it really relates to everything that's hard, right? Accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, right? So for me, it's, as many of you know, my brother died of his addiction. My mom has a lot of, health problems. My aunt is passing away, and, she's at that place in her life where everyone is passing away around her. And there was just so much tragedy. And I look back at this beautiful place where we grew up in Alaska, and how they tried to make everything magical. And it just turned out, pardon my French, really shitty, and I think every day, like, it wasn't supposed to be this way. It just was not supposed to be this way. But at the same time, I have to accept that this is the way it is. This is the way things turned out. I wish they would have turned out differently. And I believe that, when we're in heaven, they will be different, but it's if I dwell on that, and if I try to change it and make them get better, or, make other people conform to what I want, it's not going to happen. And I'm going to not have any peace over that. So I have to just accept it, and it's tough,
Don't let today's problems.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, how is finding peace for you, apart from, the substances? How has it changed your understanding of faith, of God, and of your relationships, and of yourself?
Well, that's a multifaceted question.
It is.
But I think,
faith, God, yourself. Relationships, God, yourself.
In order to conform to the format of this podcast, let me kind of boil it down here and just say, look, we wouldn't be married. Okay. First of all,
right.
We wouldn't have been able to emotionally bond and have the kind of relationship that we have now. We wouldn't be able to love each other because we wouldn't have been emotionally healthy enough or mature enough to do it.
Right.
Okay. So that's the first, example. Number two is, like, most certainly the circumstances with my family would have triggered me into drinking and using again, which may well have broken up our marriage had I not been, 19 years down the road, sober, because they used to trigger me into drinking all the time, you too, when you were younger. But I just think, I work in sales for a career, and sometimes people refuse to buy from me for the dumbest reasons. It doesn't even make sense. They may not even understand why. And so instead of taking it personally when somebody tells me no or doesn't buy something from me, or they go, they use somebody else to run their campaign or whatever the heck it is, right? I can just move on to the next one now and stuff like that. But I think probably the biggest deal is just like being in the place in my sobriety where, like, when crap happens and stuff just sucks, like, booze doesn't even enter into the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, it's not there. Like, I don't want it. But it doesn't even enter into the conversation, like going through stressful times and having to navigate stuff, health problems, what have you. Like, drinking and trying to run away like a scared little bitch doesn't even it doesn't even come in there. And that's the real gift of it. And it was something that you had to work for. I had to work for, for years and years and years. It probably took me 5 years before I lost my desire to drink, 5 years of sobriety, and probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 years before I didn't even think about it anymore. And what am I? I'm at 22, so it hasn't been very long, relatively speaking.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was a fight.
Well, and the other part of the serenity is once we, basically God grant me the serenity to accept that what I can't change. I am an alcoholic, right? Or I am a drug addict, or I am a food addict, or I am a gambling addict. And there's, I can't change that. So I'm giving it up to you, right? And I'm asking for your help because it's beyond my control. So once then we get the substance out, then it becomes the serenity becomes, what is my part in this addiction? Who am I at my core? Who did you create me to be? Because now we've got to get healthy. And I've never known anyone on this entire earth that is sober or healthy that doesn't have the ability to self-reflect. And what that means is, what's wrong with me? Why do I have this anxiety? Am I completely codependent? I'm dyslexic. I sometimes have problems with simple things. And that is part of what led to my addiction. And so I have to accept that, while maybe I'm super brilliant in some ways, because by the way, Einstein was dyslexic, but there's also just some real challenges that started really early. And I had to just say, you know what, I can't change my brain. I have to literally look at all of these issues that I have, and I have to accept them, right? Because if I don't see them and I don't accept them, I certainly can't change them, right? And then there's some stuff that we can change with God's help, and then there's some stuff that we can't. And you know what? That's okay.
Nothing symbolizes my childhood and things I have no control over than this Raiders hat. The Raiders have sucked for 40 years. I mean, I was 12 years old the last time they won a Super Bowl. They got blown out of a Super Bowl, 20-something years ago by the Buccaneers. But the Raiders haven't smelled a lot of success, right? I don't have any control over it. People joke about me or chide me about being a Raiders fan. It's like, my mother was born in Oakland. It was something I was raised with, right? And, and it's a really simple example, but how many guys do you know whose mood is determined by the outcome of the football game?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And, it's not like I'm a huge football fan, but I just while we were talking, I just saw this Raiders hat on my head and said, this could be another great example. As you go forward, right, priorities change. Like when I was younger, football was a big deal to me, but it's not anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't hardly even, I maybe have watched a complete football game once in the last 5 years. Your priorities change. Things go forward as we get there. So I think what we're trying to get at with this conversation about the Serenity Prayer is look, I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me, right? And you can pray for discernment, and you can pray for wisdom, and you can sort this stuff out so that you can rise above the stuff that's going out. You can trust with the Lord in all your heart and not lean on your own understanding. And in all your ways submit to Him, and He'll make your path straight.
Yes.
That is literally the Serenity Prayer was patterned after that scripture in Proverbs. I think it's Proverbs 3, if I'm not mistaken. Proverbs 3:5 or what have you, if I remember right.
It is Proverbs, 3:5 through 6.
3, 5, and 6. So the point of it is, right, is this is where your higher power comes in. This is where, sorting your life out and getting rid of the triggers out of your life, that's what the Serenity Prayer is all about. It's I don't have to drink over any of this stuff. I just need to sort it out and understand what I can fix and what I can't fix.
Yeah.
And there's things that I can't fix and I'll never be able to fix. I don't know if I will ever talk to my brother or my mother again. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Someday, my father's 86 years old. I may just, next time I see my father, maybe pictures of him at his memorial service. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have any control over that. I'm not going to be part of, continuing the problem, of course, but I just let them be and pray for them, right? And in business, I let the customer be and pray that they choose me to provide their insurance for them or what have you, or that this candidate hires me to help them with their campaign. But ultimately, all I get to do is play my part and make my presentation and lay out the facts as I understand them to be, and the other person has to make the decision. So I think what we've been trying to say, and in our relationship, right, it's okay, you're dyslexic, you're this creative person, you have this, array of skills and stuff like that.
I know. Do you like my background at the beach? See, isn't it cool?
We, it's kind of interesting because we both we're not exactly what I would call normal people. So, I'm sitting here looking at these bricks, and it's kind of giving me a flashback to the 70s.
Another brick in the wall. Okay, pardon me. Sorry.
It's okay to be weird. That's, who knows what the hell normal means, right?
By the way, that background,
God,
it's $10 on Amazon.
Grant me the serenity to be me.
Right? Well, and
let everybody else be them. And let me play my role in life the way I'm supposed to be, like a mature adult and what have you, because things happen. we've been talking around in circles. We've talked about the same, concepts a few times, but I hope that, here, like in mine and Jodie's relationship, we let each other be who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. All the world. Yeah. And I love what it talks about in A. It's like all the world is a stage and I was its best director, right? It's, and so that's what we mean when we're letting go of that. And then the final kind of piece is, so we got, God grant me the serenity to accept what I can't change, right? And then the courage to change what I can. And this was a big piece for me because I like to obsess and then I wouldn't do what I needed to do. So sometimes what can help
paralysis by analysis.
Yeah, like before bed or something, you make a list. You write down, literally, here's what's happening. On the left is what I can control, and on the right, I can't. Right? And then God help me.
No, I'm not on the list on the left. Right?
No. Well, it depends on the day. But no, you're never on the list. You're never on the list, right? And then
at least not that list.
And then right, give me the courage. Like if I'm miserable in my job, rather than drink over it, say, okay, so what can I control and what can I not control? Do I have to stay here for a certain amount of time? Okay, maybe I do. So what are some things that I can change and what are things that I can't? And then if I need to talk to the boss or make a change, God, give me the courage to do it. Then there's times, and this has been so great for me, where like an ethical thing comes up or something, right? And we don't know the difference. We don't really know. We don't have an answer as to how we should proceed, right? So if you pray about it, like a lot of times I'll be like, okay, I don't know what to do, God. Like that's really weird. And I'll pray about it and sleep on it. And usually within 24 hours, the answer will come. Like God will help you with that.
And you claim all the time that you don't hear God's voice. Isn't that something? You just laid out the roadmap for how you do.
Well, I want him to write it on the wall.
Yeah, right.
To be more obvious.
But when you're snuggled up with your pet stuffed seal, this is what happens. This is good to know. I just learned something new about my wife today. This is really cool. So the Bible says, guys, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you.
Yeah.
I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. That was Jesus speaking.
Yep.
That was basically God when he was on earth in the form of Jesus Christ saying, look, we got this. I got this.
Yeah.
Get out of my way and let me got this for you. And the more that you do that, the easier it will be to stay away from the booze. How about that?
He said, in this world, you will have trouble, right? But take heart, for I have overcome the world. And so that is, right, hardships as the pathway to peace, trusting he will make all things right if I surrender to his will. So that is the hard part. It's a daily surrender, right? So in closing,
let go and let God.
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things I can, and what the heck's the difference? Tell me the difference.
The wisdom to know the
difference.
wisdom
to know the difference. So I hope this is a good kind of opening understanding of the Serenity Prayer for you. Please share this with anyone you know. And so we're going to take this prayer throughout this series and apply it to different aspects of life, grief and
Raiders.
I mean, football, right? Yeah.
It all counts.
Trauma, mental health challenges, all those sorts of things, death, grief, we have to accept that. So I hope that you will stay tuned throughout this series on Serenity. And thank you so much, friends, for joining us, and God bless you. Thank you so much, friends, for listening to Genuine Life Recovery, playing on your favorite app or on my website at jodiestevens.org. It's JODIESTEVENS, jodiestevens.org. There you can check out my podcast, blog, recovery coaching info, speaking, and more. Check it out.